Okay, well, this is the annual meeting of Round Bridge and Turnpike Authority. So welcome everyone. First, we have an approval of the minutes of April the 12th, 2023. Motion and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Next is the
Public comment.
oh, public comment. I'm sorry.
No one's here.
Is there anyone here for public comment? I apologize for that. Next item is the annual election of officers. Do I have any motions?
Make a motion to leave the slate the way it is. We're fine, can you make that kind of a motion?
Well, yeah. Well,
I'll second it.
We have a motion second to appoint Salome, Darrell, and whomever else. And let me ask you, is that hold true? Is that a good way to do it? Just to keep it at status quo? Yeah.
Which
We can mention the individual names, but
We don't care.
it's a waste of time.
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
I
sir.
don't think it's like the presidency of Turkey or anything.
There's no Russian intervention.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Yeah, the ayes have it. Okay, and I'd just like to say congratulations to everyone that got reappointed recently, so.
It's a great team.
Yeah, I do as well.
If it ain't broke.
There you go. So, well, I think that's wonderful. Next is the Mount Hope Administration Building roof replacement.
Sure, I'll take that one. Good
Yeah.
morning, everyone. Roger Williams University, who is the tenant of the Mount Hope Administration Building currently, notified our maintenance staff of a leak, or several leaks, I should say, of the interior of the building. Ripon maintenance staff inspected it, and it appears to be related to the flat part of the roof, which is in the rear of the building. We conferred with a qualified roofing company and performed that field inspection. However, it seems to be made up of multiple layers of roofing from previous repairs, and there was also a probability that some of the material may be considered ACM, which is asbestos-containing material, and needed further testing. So, using the on-calls that we approved last year, we hired one of the firms to go out and do some testing and give us a report on what they found. And sure enough, there is some ACM in the roof. With that information, however, we were able to put a bid package together that included the collection and abatement of all that material as part of the roof replacement, and it went out as one package. And we received 2 bids for the project. One was from Sole Source Construction LLC in the amount of $29,480, and the other was Apollo Roofing and Sheet Metal LLC in the amount of $74,900.
Eric, why such a big spread? And we were comparing apples to apples, right?
We're comparing apples to apples. What I can tell you is in the past, we've used Sole Source via other bids. For example, the copper gutters that we put on the building along this parking lot to match everything else, that price came in crazy low. It was like $8,000, I think it was. I don't even know how you could buy the materials for the gutters for $8,000, but they came out. I watched them make them on site in that truck and put them up. I can't explain how they bid so low on some of this stuff, but they do.
Did they also do the roof near North Main Street, or North Main?
They did.
Yeah.
They did. They did a little bit around. Not always. There was a couple instances, I think, where they came in higher than other contractors, but they came in with some really good pricing on some of these projects.
Where are they located?
I think they're in Cranston. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So, included in this bid, in these prices, is a $5,000 allowance for any unforeseen damages. Could be some of the roof underlayment that might be damaged that they find and we're not aware of yet. So that $5,000 allowance will only be used on a necessary basis once they reveal the underneath of the roof. So where RIPA staff is recommending that we approve that purchase order in the amount not to exceed $29,480 for a PO with Sole Source Construction.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said here. My question I brought up before with Jeff is that we were actually, this is a historic structure that we put money into but we also rent it to Roger Williams University. Are we satisfied with the rent that we are receiving to keep that building at least maintained properly?
It comes up in 2025. When it was done last time, I think it was done over, 10 years, and they did not even have an escalator. This time there will be an annual
All right,
escalator.
okay.
So we'll do an appraisal, we'll get an appraiser up the MPA. They'll probably have an appraisal done as well, because they also rent one of the parking lots.
Right.
And then we rent the lay-down area at the base of the
Yes.
bridge. So it'll be all market price with annual
All right,
escalator.
so that'll be updated when the
Yes, sir.
appropriate time. Great.
So where is this building? If you come across the bridge from Portsmouth into Bristol, is it on the left right
It's
after
the
the
one on
bridge?
the left, so
Yeah.
there's an admin building, which was the original, that's the historic structure, then
Yeah.
there's a maintenance garage that we occupy.
Gotcha.
So we run our satellite operations over on that side, out of that building.
What do they use it for? Do you know?
The building, I
Yeah.
think it's finance, right? Mostly finance functions, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure it's a great use for them, but I just want to make sure that we're getting fair market value for the structure.
Yep.
Further questions? Thank you. Oh, and so I need a motion to
I'll make a
award the
motion.
bid to Sole Source Construction. Motion, seconded, discussion, hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. Next item is the Newport Bridge Pier 5W bearing replacement.
Yeah, I'll take that one again.
Yes, sir.
So last year, June 2022, Carney Corporation began the bearing replacement project for Pier 5W, which included temporary shoring, jacking, and eventual replacement of the 2 rocker bearings. So the original construction support services contract with WSP was for $47,833.92. And then we had construction inspection services for a resident engineer with Kevel Enterprises, originally for $35,000. The project, I know I've kept the board aware as well. The project took longer than anticipated. We did originally anticipate having the bearings replaced by last fall. We ran into weather issues. There were some difficulties with the shop drawings and trying to get the initial shoring detailed and whatnot. So that took some time. We also ran into issues with the supply chain and trying to get the bearings in time for the replacement, and then winter came, and that wasn't conducive to replacing the bearings. We wanted a certain temperature range to replace them, so we decided to have Carney button up the shoring so that it was safe for the winter, and they came back out this spring and resumed work. But due to a myriad of issues, including the extra time it took to get the shoring in place, the shop drawing iterations to achieve the approvals, and then they actually had some equipment issues as well, so we had to work through those. We incurred some extra time for both the construction support services and inspection services, and WSP is requesting an amendment to their original contract in an amount not to exceed $22,000, and Kevel has also requested an amendment in theirs to not exceed $12,500 for their additional work to complete the project. We've reviewed both of them. I think it's reasonable. I think the reasons for the delays were, it was a difficult project to begin with, and we feel that these costs are warranted. So our recommendation is to approve the task order amendments to WSP in the amount not to exceed $22,000, and for Kevel in the amount not to exceed $12,500. And I will note also, I want to add that Carney has not asked for any additional costs on the project, and we also had built into the contract a $25,000 allowance, which we have not had to use. So we do have that $25,000 in the contract to help offset this.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor to approve as recommended?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Sure.
Next item is Newport Bell Compression Link Evaluation, Construction Contract and Task Force.
Sure. Take that one as well. So back in March, on the 24th this year, maintenance staff, Frank Flowers to be exact, alerted WSP of a noise at the top pin of the east tower, southeast compression link. He was under the bridge doing some routine work, and this is exactly how it should happen, actually. We try to spend time on the bridges. He heard a noise that he hadn't heard in a while. or I don't even think he's ever heard it. So he said something's not right, and he suspected that compression link had an issue. So we called WSP. They came down, I think he was here within 45 minutes of our call from somewhere in Midwestern Mass. I don't know how he made it that quick, but he came down. He went out on the bridge. This is one of the inspectors that has been on the bridge often and was last on that area in the fall. And he said this was not making the noise in the fall. Something has worn out a little further. So he basically said that the compression link was showing some play in it. So what happened was Lynch, what we think happened was Lynch had been paving the ramp project, and there were heavy loads going over. So there was asphalt trucks and whatnot. That was bringing this condition to light just a little more than normal under the heavy load. Some of the asphalt trucks were coming over in rows. So they took a look and then they recommended that we get out to do some further work. They first said this is not an emergency. It's a priority. They produced a report which is attached to this action item that lays out a series of actions and time durations that should be attached to them. So the first order of action is they recommended that we hire a qualified contractor to go out and install some jacking materials. Now the jacking materials we found under the Newport Bridge compound area on this side of the bridge. Peter's aware of them from the past.
I left it there for you.
With a ladder.
So we located a lot of materials that we used to perform repairs on other compression links in the past. I think the most recent was 2003, they did a pin replacement.
Right.
According to WSP. So the materials have been sitting around a while, but we found almost all of the materials are serviceable except for some small plates that we have to make. So we're geared up to do the phase 1 work in this. And what I'm asking for here is, and this is based on WSP's report and their recommendation, I'm asking for some money to work against on a time and materials basis, basically. The work is tough to put together as a bid because we need to get out there, put the jacking material in place, and we need to take the nuts off the pin, do an evaluation. It's best done on a time and materials basis. It's a very tough one to put a bid together. And I find it hard to believe that many contractors, if any, would even bid on it if it was put together as a bid. So we're recommending that we enter into contracts with WSP in the amount of not to exceed $15,000 for construction support services. Kevel in the amount of $15,000 for construction inspection services, and for the construction piece, we went out and we RFQ'd the job. We put out an request for qualifications. Basically said, you know, we were looking for people who had done similar work, and we know of several contractors, so we sent it out, and they submitted proposals to say, this is what we've done and this is what we can do. Aetna submitted their proposal saying, we've done this before and we've done it on your bridge. And after reviewing their proposal, it was the only one we received. However, looking at the proposal, it's hard to say they're not qualified since they have done it. And in fact, they have some staff still working there, even though it's been so long, that did the work back then. So we're recommending that we approve $100,000 for Aetna to work on a time and materials basis to install the jacking materials in place and to get the pin nuts off so that we can do a further inspection. This is only phase 1. We don't know what we're going to find yet, so we can't quantify what the next phase would be, which would be the eventual repair of the compression link pin. But the intention is, once we get the jacking material put in place, we can leave the jacks in place while we assess further, and we can leave them in place as kind of a redundancy, to kind of take some of the stress off the pin. Again, there's no emergency on it, but there's a priority attached to it. So that's our recommendation.
For a total of 1/3.
For a total of 1/3, that's right.
Motion approved.
Motion second.
Just a comment, I'd like to compliment everybody that's been involved in this. As Eric said, we're fortunate to have capable people who are out there and paying attention.
Well
So,
said.
and Frank's not here today, so I'll embarrass him in absence. But, I mean, he could have just said, oh, I wonder what that was, and just kept going, and he did. And then brought to Eric's attention, Eric got the team together. That day, they came down and inspected it, understood what the significance of it was, it's a priority, but not a safety issue. So everybody did their job well. I just wanted to acknowledge the staff on how great a job they did.
Well said, and I think we all echo your thoughts. Okay, so we have a motion, it's been duly seconded, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Next is the phone system upgrade.
I'll be presenting action item number 8. Good morning, everyone. The current phone system for the authority's general offices and the customer service center are provided by Mitel. The system's hosted on site. It's behind 2 versions of software updates and upgrades. In conjunction with our phone consultant, the customer service and the IT departments have developed a plan to upgrade and secure the phone system. Partners Technology, our phone system consultant, will virtualize the phone system at Jamestown and in a co-location in Warwick, providing a higher level of redundancy and resiliency. Partners Technology will also build out an entire system in a sandbox environment. They'll provide all licensing, software updates, testing, integration, updated carrier service, and staff training. So what this will benefit our customers will be, we'll have new menus, new prompts, an estimated wait time on hold, we'll have new on-hold music, we'll have new on-hold messaging capabilities, and we'll have a bilingual or a multilingual option when we decide to integrate that into the new back office system. The benefit to the customer service department will be, we'll have soft phone technology, excuse me, remote work capability, better reporting, upgraded hardware, and reduced toll-free rates. We'll also have the capability of operating somewhere else in case this building ever gets inundated by water or flood or any kind of issue. We can literally operate anywhere on laptops in another building, anywhere we need to go.
And currently, you're not able to do that?
We do not have that ability right now with the current version we're on and no updates. So the RIPTA staff recommends approval to execute a purchase order with Partners Technology for phone system upgrades in an amount not to exceed $55,920.
Questions?
Is that an annual contract price?
No, that's a one-time price just to do the whole system over. It comes with a 1-year warranty and full support throughout the 1 year and some new hardware included.
Okay.
And we're going to save on our toll-free rates. Currently, we're paying 0.15 down from 0.23. So we'll get a excuse me on that one. Inbound is 0.29 and we'll go down to 0.19 per minute for our toll-free inbound rates, which is a significant saving on our toll-free bill as well. So we'll realize a monthly saving on every bill with a new carrier.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion, second. Is further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next is capital projects. Eric?
Yeah. So I've given you some updates on some of these already. I'll kind of go through them quickly. So Pier 5W today is complete. Actually, as of Wednesday, it was completed on Monday. They're officially off-site. The bearings are in, painted, pretty, and everything's all set. So this one here will come off the list for the next time.
And way better than the originals.
That way better than the originals. That's right. In fact, in some of the photos, you see the original rocker bearing removed, and it's just it's a big difference. So.
And they no longer look like rockers.
They no longer look like rockers. They will not rock. That's right. They will only slide. Phase 2 AET final design. We've received the 100% design submission from WSP. We're going through and making review comments on that. And we have a meeting scheduled for later next week to basically do a page turn review with WSP and communicate all of our comments so they can then move it towards bid package to go out to public bid. The gantry design is still in development from an architectural standpoint. The structural design is all set. The architectural piece is kind of on a separate track, which will basically dress up a a tube structure. A traditional tube structure is going to be at the core of the gantry, and then we're dealing with the architectural treatments on a separate track with an architect hired by WSP. The dehumidification cable and anchorage design for Mount Hope is still in 30% design. Just plugging along on that one. The video analytics on the Newport, Pell, and Mount Hope bridges, we had some more testing performed by Parsons, which we're currently discussing internally as far as the results of the testing, and there's going to be some more discussion on that system internally before we can figure out exactly where we're going to end up with this project, quite frankly. It is mostly operational, but we're still having some issues in the testing. The safety barrier feasibility study is in design. We have bi-weekly meetings with Atkins to keep us up to date, and it is on schedule to date still. And load ratings and inspections, many of the ones listed in your package here, we have just finished up and received reports on. The one that just started up is the Jamestown Horizontal Bridge crack monitoring plan that you've approved this past April. And AI is already on site, the consultant doing their crack monitoring, and in the end they will put together the initial report of what their findings are and then proceed from there with their quarterly reports on the crack monitors. And if you have any questions?
Questions? Thank you. You're welcome. Next is the financial reports.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jim.
Total revenue is higher than budget by $6.8 million and 24%. Toll revenue was higher by $7.5 million, and that was partially offset by lower gas tax proceeds of $700,000. Overall operating expenses were lower than budget by $800,000, resulting in operating profit exceeding budget by $7.6 million. The specific operating expenses that were higher than budget are the direct result of the higher revenue, specifically the bill-by-mail transactions. These expenses include postage, supplies, and credit card fees. Katie and the tolling operations team have implemented a plan to consolidate invoices, which should reduce these expenses in the future. The major operating expense line item that is lower than budget are the bridge inspections. This is due to the mix of timing of the expenses in the budget and the overall lower cost of task orders as a result of seeking multiple bids for the specific inspections. Preliminary April numbers also look to be positive when compared to budget. And through the first 15 days of May, traffic is trending at 106% of 2022 levels, and more importantly, 102% of pre-pandemic levels. Next month, I will be presenting the fiscal year 24 budget for review and consideration for approval. The preliminary budget developed has revenue exceeding $40 million, which is approximately $1 million higher than pre-pandemic levels. And this is the first time the authority's revenues will exceed $40 million in the fiscal year. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Anyone? What's that? Yeah. Okay, good job. Thank you. Next is the Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On federal funding, I think we had already reported to you that we were not successful on the bridge investment program. Hope springs eternal. We still have our most recent submission pending in the most recent round of RAISE funding. So we'll hope, and we will not give up until we find some more money to help us with, we already have the $10 million earmarked for the Mount Hope Bridge dehumidification project, and we're looking for some more money to that project is underway, as Eric mentioned, but we need, we're still looking for the funds, and we'll continue to look. Related to federal funding.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
What's the plan B to go with no federal funding coming?
The plan B is that our capital plan, thanks to Jeff Goulart, is now tied to a plan of finance.
Good.
And we'll rearrange projects, we'll reprioritize so that so that the additional funds are there.
Good. Good.
Lori, if I can just expand upon that.
Yeah, sure.
The funding for the capital plan only assumes $10 million of federal funding.
Great. Perfect.
When do they release them typically?
I love that kind of a plan.
What,
The
the
design is
actual
on there
funding?
now.
I know.
Yeah, no, just, I think,
No, I know. It's always good to know that it's fully funded after the design.
right, yeah.
Because historically, both our agencies would design stuff and the plans would sit there for like 30 years because they didn't have the
Well, this
funding.
one-
But this kind of financial planning is
And this
great.
one can't wait. So,
This is very good.
So Chair Salome has just asked me a question about when do they actually fund, which is a great question, good lead into the rest of the picture on federal funding currently. The 82.5 million that we received for a bundle of projects on the Pell Bridge, we are currently working with the Federal Highway Administration to develop the agreement. The first step in funding is to come to terms on the final agreement for the grant agreement. And then once they do that, the next step is that they obligate the funds, and we expect that to happen this summer. So for the 82.5 million, we're working on that. The 10 million, Jeff, I'll go back to you on the $10 million earmark when, I mean, it's received again as the work takes place.
Yes, so that'll actually flow through RIDOT, much like the money for the safety barrier structure.
Right.
So we'll enter into a sub-agreement with RIDOT, and so just like I do today, I go ahead, I pay the invoices, I submit it for Lawrence, review and approval, and they reimburse us, so it'll work in that same fashion.
So ARPA funds and the earmark funds flow through RIDOT to us. The infra funds for the Pell Bridge will come directly to us, the
Right, direct
82.5
recipient.
million.
And the state share comes from,
The 40, so it's they funded 60% of that 137.
The
And
40%.
the balance of that comes through our toll bonds,
good.
proceeds from
Yep.
bonds.
Okay, so it's internal.
Yes.
Yep,
Yep.
great.
And then,
I'm sorry. This is great. I mean, you've got almost $100 million worth of federal funding, right?
right.
That at one time was all agency bond funding, right? So it was debt that you historically counted on. You replaced what would have been $100 million worth of debt with federal funds. This is
or we couldn't have done the projects for many years.
right. Or you would have had to find a way,
Right.
either use state funds or bonding to be able to do that. So it's great.
Thank you.
Cool.
So the
And it's never happened before, the agency.
No, it's never
has
happened.
never happened.
They would always bond.
Right.
So, I mean, this will considerably reduce the debt
Debt.
service so it has a compounding effect, yeah. Good
So,
job.
so part of our federal funding efforts, part of what has made us successful is that we made a compelling case that we would develop good workforce development programs. So I do want to mention that after much trial and error, we did put together a team of young people from CCRI. They're all from the Department of Engineering. Hats off to the new interim president of CCRI, Rosemary Costigan. She was the one who walked down the hall to the Department of Engineering, and we now have 6 or 7 students who are actively participating. They're very engaged. We've had virtual meetings with them. I think Eric gave the first presentation. I don't think anyone wanted to hang up at the end of the virtual meeting. They had questions about the bridges. It was all very interesting. It moved very quickly. The second session was given by WSP, and they focused in on not on dehumidification, but more generally on cables and suspender ropes and what it takes to maintain those components of a suspension bridge. Again, lots of questions from these students. So I think we have drawn them in. We're excited, they're excited. We're getting the support we need from our consultants who are stepping up to say, we will help with your workforce development programs. So all of that has been great.
Does DOT have similar type programs?
Yeah, we've historically had an internship program that we bring in a good number of young students every year.
That's good.
DOT workforce.
That's good.
It's beginning to diminish, however, because
Yeah.
enrollment in the engineering programs at the universities is really going down in the last several years.
I started out back in '93 in a co-op program, which was it was the internship program on steroids. So they had the internship program back then that was summer only. The co-op program allowed you to work 40 hours a week, anytime during summer and anytime during school breaks, and up to 24 hours a week during school. And I was in that for 2.5 years, I think, and then entered the workforce from there.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And worked out well.
Yeah,
Worked out well.
many of our engineers at DOT came through the internship programs also, just like Aaron.
So I think that's great, because of what you just said is a lot.
We need them. The workforce, not only in the last thing in the world we thought several years ago when we set out on this massive funding and construction effort was that the critical path in projects would become personnel. And that's happening, not only at the engineering level, but also at the construction trades level.
Skilled trades.
So we have been working with Rhode Island Building Trades to develop apprenticeship programs to, everybody going to high school nowadays, including the guidance counselors and teachers, are channeling students directly to college. That doesn't always fit. Not only doesn't it fit from a career standpoint for many, but financially it doesn't fit either. I mean, now you can go into the building trades out of high school, get a full apprenticeship training program, free. In the 4 years after high school, earn about $160,000 plus full benefits, Cadillac medical plans, life insurance, pension, annuity, and come out at the end of 4 years about $200,000 or $300,000 in the positive net package. Instead, a 4-year college student is going through and coming out an average of $120,000 in debt. So there are great career opportunities, but getting people motivated to get up in the morning and show up to do physical labor is becoming more and more difficult process. In the apprenticeship programs, the first phase of many of the apprenticeship programs is basically a physical fitness kind of activity to get people in condition and motivated to actually work physically. So it's getting a little weird to get people to build the stuff that we need to get built. But anyway, I hate to put a damper on it, but it's a reality we're all facing. But it's great what you're doing with the engineering students.
Thank you. We're excited about it. General Assembly, our bill 5464A, which Rep. Finkelman here in Jamestown sponsored for us, which would affect our tolling notice times. It would extend them for our customers. Would give them more time to pay the first notice they receive in the mail, and also give them more time to pay the second notice received. That bill now has a sub-A. It's made it through the House. It's pending before Senate Judiciary. So we're making our way toward, they're looking toward, I know they're looking at hopefully finishing up in the second or third week of June. So we should have good news on that bill. Bill number 6002 is the same bill that has been put in for several years now, having to do with safety barriers on the bridges. It would require that we install barriers on the bridges by June of next year. We have filed neutral testimony with House Finance yesterday and last night. Some of you may have watched Capital TV and have watched the testimony that was received on the bill. Again, we filed testimony outlining all of the things that we're doing. In addition, the feasibility study for barriers on both the Mount Hope and the Jamestown Verrazano bridges is well underway. Eric has bi-weekly meetings with Atkins, the engineering firm that was hired to look at all aspects of whether it's feasible to put barriers on the bridges. And in addition to that, Eric and I have now partnered with an entity in New York that's a group run by the New York State Bridge Authority. They are preparing a summit in September, and we're helping them with the planning of that summit. It's called Transportation for Life, and it's focused on all aspects of public suicide. And it's multidisciplinary. It includes behavioral professionals as well as engineers, looking at all aspects of this issue. So we're doing everything that we can. We can't.
Question.
Yes.
We're moving ahead with the feasibility study. When is that? When do you think that will bring forward the suggestions and recommendations?
We'll have the final report in May of next year.
May of next year.
So it's a 16-month schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
So May of next year, we're gonna find out whether or not it's feasible, and
That's right.
if it is, alternatives, right?
Sure.
Then how long would it take? Let's assume they come back with a feasibility of an option that is feasible. Even assuming we would have the funding then to do it in place in May to move forward with the design, then we have to do a design and construction of it. So how long after that, after May, do you think that would take? Ballpark.
Realistically, I don't see you breaking ground in much under 2 years on
Right.
any barriers.
And then at least another year and a half to build them, right?
Right.
So we're talking about 3 or 4 years total from now.
Realistically.
And the bill in the House is going to require you to build them next year.
As written, as currently pending,
Okay.
that bill would require
And you
June of
submitted
20.
neutral.
Yes.
Why didn't you submit an objection to it saying it's,
Well,
based on the facts that Eric just lay out the facts and say it's physically impossible for us to do this, so we recommend that this bill be denied.
the letter does say that.
Oh, it does.
However, we want to be respectful also of the families who have
No,
lost.
I get the
people
families,
to
but I'm
public
talking
suicide.
about our dialogue with legislature.
And I'll be happy to provide you with a copy of the letter,
Yeah.
and it does say that.
All right, because we'll gladly, DOT will gladly amplify that message for you. I mean, in another letter submission.
Thank you.
I mean, look, we all want to do what's right? I don't think anybody at this table wants to put anybody in danger or do whatever, but we're limited in what we could do by the physical reality of the world, right?
That's right.
The physics of it, the engineering of it, the constructability of it, and the financing of it. So, we can't keep getting laws passed that create unrealistic expectations for the public, because that is just as unfair to those people as us taking no action at all.
We stay in close communication with the sponsors of the bills on the House and Senate side, and this is the
Yeah.
4th year the bill has been put in, and of course, each year the date has changed.
Yeah.
And we're doing all that we can. We're doing all
Oh, I
that
know,
we
I
can
know
to
that.
move
I
forward
see it.
with the Atkins study, to meet every 2 weeks. The Atkins study is multifaceted.
Yeah.
And we have to continue our mission of making sure that the vehicles that come over and back on these bridges do
Right.
so
Gotta be
safely,
safe.
that the bridges are safe.
Look,
So
safety is number one,
It's-
right?
it's-
So, I get that, but, the message needs to be sent back to legislators when they're creating unrealistic expectations, that in fact is what they're doing, so.
Understood.
All right, send me a copy and we'll
do that.
we'll amplify it.
I'll do that. Senate Finance, Jeff and I were there, and Eric, last week, testifying before Senate Finance. They had invited us to come and present on our budget. So we presented on our budget for 2023, essentially, since 2024 is in process, and you will, the board will see 2024 next month in June. Yesterday, Jeff and I attended, and Director Alvidi also, the Senate Finance hearing on the Syracuse University efforts to develop an alternative to the gas tax and take a hard look at what the future holds in terms of how we replace the ever-diminishing gas tax and how we prepare for there being more electric vehicles on the roads, what that means for the roads, you know, and what it means is that electric vehicles are heavier. They are expected to do more damage to the roads, and of course then there's the issue of the supply of electricity for those vehicles. So,
Most importantly, an erosion of the revenue that comes to us to maintain our bridges, right? The state share of that comes to both this agency and my agency, is already reduced by about 10%, 9% of vehicles on the road using electricity instead of gasoline right now.
Where do you see the future of the road use charge effort?
Well, that was the subject of the Syracuse University study.
Yeah.
They laid out several options, and there are even more. So I think what's going to happen, this was a kickoff study that was kind of spearheaded by Lou DePalma as the chair of the Finance Committee, Senate Finance Committee. But this gives us a basic set of data that shows the trajectory, the possible trajectory of the decline of the revenue coming from gas tax. It makes it apparent that we have to make decisions now rather than wait and get behind in revenues and have our infrastructure fail as it did in the past because of lack of funding, right? So we have to make those decisions now. I think this study highlighted that. And we'll all be working together with, I've spoken to the Senate President, the Speaker, and the Governor, and everybody's on board to begin the discussions this year to put legislation in next year to begin to address this, so that there'll be a kind of, as the gas tax phases out, there'll be another revenue stream independent of the gas tax that will provide the necessary state funding for transportation. Regardless of whether they're electric vehicles or whether they're heavier or lighter, they're still going to be riding our roads and bridges, right? So we need to fund that, and we need to have a viable, sustainable, dedicated transportation funding if we're going to be able to do all of these projects. And when we get grants, have the state funds to be able to match and probably maintain everything. So those discussions will be happening during the next year. It's going to be very interesting because I think it'll be a look forward, and it'll be an opportunity for us in your agencies not only begin to look at the alternate revenue streams for the gas tax portion that you get, but maybe use it as an opportunity to begin to look at, forward-looking at what might replace the traditional easy pass tolling kind of options, and look forward to other kinds of means of doing that may be simpler and easier, et cetera.
I think the moral of the story is that you should expect to hear the acronym RUC quite frequently in the months and years ahead.
Right.
VMT's Vehicle Miles Traveled is a form of RUC.
Yep.
You'll be hearing a lot about that. Also, one of the things the Syracuse University students noted yesterday is that many states, and I forget the number, but maybe it was 19, have added fees to registration, vehicle registration costs. There was an article recently on Illinois which tried to add $1,000. They settled on $100, but they did try to add $1,000 in the original bill.
There's a simplicity in that solution that's very attractive, because one of the things that the Syracuse looked at was what is the actual gas tax revenue derived from a single vehicle every year. It's about $150. So one of the options, among others that involve a lot of technology and measuring how far and how fast cars are going. One of the most elegant solutions and simplest is simply take that $150 that you normally pay in gas tax, and if you have an EV, you pay that on an annual basis. Now, that's an average, so that some people are going to be paying more of that 150 than they're actually using, and some people paying less because they go more miles. But the mass balance will be the same revenue stream. But I think the discussions we're going to be having open up an opportunity for us to relook at the way that all of our revenue streams are working in all of the agencies, RIPTA, RIDOT in Turnpike Bridge, to look globally and see if we can find a single solution that will not only provide the dollars we need to replace existing revenue streams, but also increase it as we look forward to a 10 and 20-year plan to fulfill the needs well into the future. So since we have the patient open on the operating table, maybe it'd be a good time just to fix everything, you know?
The International Bridge and Turnpike Authority Association is having a RUC conference in June. I'll be there, so I will be reporting back to all of you on what I hear. One of the leading states on this topic is Oregon, and a woman named Maureen Bach, who is, I've already checked in with her and made sure that she will be there, and she's, so I expect I'll be telling you more about this as it comes up.
Lori, what is RUC an acronym for?
Road use charging.
Okay.
Yeah, and as they say, VMTs is vehicle miles traveled. It's sometimes you hear those terms used synonymously. I think the students from Syracuse yesterday were using them synonymously. You'll hear RUC more frequently than you'll hear VMT. So, so then, just as we on the engineering side have a lot going on with rocker bearings and compression links and dehumidification. On the tolling side, we're just as busy. Our current back office system is coming to an end. That contract is ending in June. The new back office system will kick in after that. It will. The new back office system is expected to go live in October. Switching to a new back office system is a major undertaking for any entity to do that, and also design a new tolling system for out in the lanes at the same time, and start to participate in the new hub that the EasyPass group is rolling out, so that we're not trading files, squaring up with other states and other agencies every month as we currently do. To do all three of those at the same time is going to be a challenge. It's a challenge now. Katie's department is doing a great job testing. There's testing today for the hub. The hub of all times is going, well, at least right now, the go-live date is July. So for a destination bridge like ours, July is not the greatest time for a new system to roll out, but we'll be okay. So we hope we'll be telling you that all is going well. And I think that's it. I think that's only all of that's going on here at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Further discussion? Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
So move.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Yeah.